So a few weeks back, I was watching one of our local Canadian motorcycle authorities, Ryan F9, on his YouTube channel.
Bikes are built to go fast, not to last. You want a cheap old Toyota, that'll work. But a motorcycle with 6 figures on the clock will be absolutely shot.
6 figures on a motorcycle and it's shot? Did I hear that right?
Will be absolutely shot.
So I had to ask for clarity. Surely Ryan would comment back. He's a transplanted West Coaster just like me. We have so much in common, like Stan and Eminem.
I just don't give a fuck.
But alas, 3 weeks have come and gone and still no word from Ryan. So inspired by his tough love, I set out to see if he was right. Where to start? Well, that was easy enough. I set out on Craigslist to find the highest mileage motorcycle I could find, period. That was my only criteria, mileage. I didn't really care what the bike was, other than it had to be a street bike. I took the liberty from Ryan's video that this is ultimately what we're talking about here, and to find out whether or not it was truly shot. A day and a couple of $1,000s later, I picked up an original 1998 BMW R1100RT. The bike had a long BC registration history and just over 194,000 kilometers. That's around 108,000 miles for our US friends. So I covered both mileage and kilometers in the 6-figure saga. No need to write me back, Ryan. I've got this. There was no question that we're going to find out whether a 6-figure on the odometer motorcycle is completely shot or not. So I admit, the bike looked pretty good in the previous owner's driveway. Although not mechanically inclined, the fellow did take it for somewhat reasonable service to someone who could at least change oil and take the bike's fairing off, which is no mean feat. Each side fairing has somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 fasteners in various locations. The bike certainly rivals the Honda Pacific Coast 800 in the category of needless fairings and extra fasteners. As I've mentioned in the past, all my new-to-me bikes get a thorough going through. Take all the plastics off and look for loose nuts, hidden damage, or broken wires. Other than some rattling front brake rotors, a well-used clutch friction plate, and an ABS issue that I'm working to rectify, sometimes the ABS light stays on, sometimes the ABS light goes off. I don't know. The tires were in reasonable condition, the differential and transmission oils were recently changed, and it ran smooth despite the previous owner claiming he didn't know anything about or having replaced the bike's notorious Hall sensor. The Hall sensor resides on the engine crankshaft and is used to time the ignition on the engine. So I suspect I'll have to replace this Hall sensor just arbitrarily. Without any history on it, I don't know what's going to happen, and when they fail, they will leave you stranded. And now I should point out, this has nothing to do with the existing mileage on the bike. These sensors have been known to fail as early as less than 80,000 kilometers, and there is an updated part available from Bosch, plus a host of other copies out there that'll work just fine. A number of BMW owners of this bike recommend having at least a backup Hall sensor in the toolbox just in case. So this is just another prudent action to take when you buy one of these early oilhead BMWs and there's no history on the Hall sensor. It makes for another great winter project. The brakes outside of the ABS light issue were otherwise flawless. I really don't know why every bike doesn't come with Brembos. Using them is akin to using silk toilet paper. Once you've experienced it, anything else is just uncivilized. With the initial inspection out of the way, we went for a couple of rides to figure out just how shot this 6-figure bike was. Riding down the highway, stop and go traffic, it didn't really feel shot. It felt, well, normal? A BMW touring bike gives you a certain feeling of respect and invulnerability when traveling through the streets of Vancouver. Like you're setting out on a cross-country adventure, dropping one foot in the Pacific Ocean and the next will be in the Atlantic, or vice versa. Even the notorious bicycle gangs of West Vancouver give a knowing nod and not the usual one-finger salute when you pass them by with this luxury machine. Did I mention that this bike has a power windscreen? Now, to coin a local phrase, that's pretty skookum on a bike 20 plus years old. On the highway, the ride of the bike was a little soft. We may need to stiffen the front forks, but certainly it was comfortable, especially within the limits of legal speeds. There is a certain simplicity that's lost on newer BMWs I've ridden. With only 5 gears on this R1100RT, just chugs along down the highway, ignoring the RPM gauge, and passing other vehicles without any sort of fuss. I even tried, despite my apprehension about the well-used clutch, to run a 0 to 100 kilometer time. As you can guess, this was a little more than what was left in the clutch could handle, and replacing the single plate BMW clutch will make for a good tech video down the line. Now, if you're saying that here's another thing wrong with this 200,000 kilometer bike, it needs a clutch. Now, I agree, but I've also had to replace clutches on bikes with less than 30,000 kilometers. So a motorcycle clutch is all about the previous rider and not the mileage that's on the bike. I'll also mention that I strongly suspect that this is an original BMW clutch installed on the assembly line in Berlin. BMW is one of the few, if the only motorcycle in the market that can get that sort of mileage out of a clutch, especially if they're looked after. So I'll wind up changing the clutch and most likely upgrading it to the later version, as this 1998 model was built prior to December of 1997, when the fatherland changed all the parts and updated it mid-production. A few rides out of the way and the bike unfazed, I knew I had to go further, dig deeper, and see where Ryan was getting his information from about six-figure odometer motorcycles. So back to the shop we went, and surely a compression test will yield results showing the bike's extensive mileage. I ran the test on a cold engine, and when I removed the spark plugs, I was sure this was going to be the nail in the BMW's proverbial coffin. The plugs looked like they had been installed by Fritz on the BMW assembly line as well, and I was very fortunate to get them out in one piece. Right cylinder, over 150 PSI? This couldn't be right. So on to the left cylinder. Same result. Could it be the compression test indicates a solid combustion chamber? This was the sort of compression figure that a bike half the mileage would have been proud of. Not convinced, I invested in a new toy for the toolbox. So for this test, you warm up the engine and then load the tester with air from your shop air compressor. Hooked up, the 200,000 kilometer BMW passes with flying colors. So what's going on here? Is a motorcycle with 6 figures on the clock really shot? Did Ryan misspeak? His staff of riders used hyperbole to inflame and incite viewers. Or was this all just clickbait? I'm no longer convinced that Ryan's words ring true. The bike appears far from shot, even with a badly worn down clutch and spark plugs with gaps the size of the Fraser Canyon. It easily runs 300 kilometer trips without breaking a sweat or burning a drop of oil. I am not going to let this rest, and further research has to be done. I mean, Ryan can't be wrong, could he? There has to be a definitive answer. Further testing is required, so we'll keep you updated on this bike. Stay in the loop and like, subscribe, and set your notifications for Rod Rides and Wrenches to hyperactive. You can also follow us on the other 2 pillars of social media, Facebook and Instagram. We've set up profiles there with some short videos and some sneak peeks of what we're putting on YouTube. We have to put this BMW project on the back burner for a few weeks. I'm actually spending some time on the riding portion of rod rides and wrenches, enjoying what our local area and the scenery has to offer this time of year, all while observing COVID protocols. And if you haven't seen our other project on the go, check out this video on the Honda ST1300 Troublemaker. The parts for this bike have finally shipped. Ryan, why does it take you so long to get me my parts? I know, you're gonna blame it on COVID-19 and the parts gathering minions. So we'll be spending our time in the shop making this Honda ST1300 roadworthy again. Follow along if you'd like to see how we took a good deal on a used Honda motorcycle and turned it into a not so good deal, replacing a bunch of parts. Until then, ride safe.